Yo, what up? It's your boy Tixfo here, and in this video I thought I would be discussing the topic of is really Dead by Daylight becoming more killer-sided? I'm of course talking about now that the new patch has been launched, 6.0. The newer patch is coming in and out, tweaking fanphobia, Medal of Man, the whole meta changing up, ayrun will being useless, Decisive being partly useless. It has led to a lot of solo queue, especially Survivor, and that they experience a lackluster game for them. Because the perks that have been reworked, the whole meta of now killers having more mobility when it comes to kicking generators, traveling throughout the map because they can just do things faster now and they have a much easier time closing down loops. A lot of other people, like Twitter users, I would say, are now discussing if really Dead by Daylight has become more killer-sided. Now, in my fairest opinion, after analyzing everything, playing a tons of games on both Killer and Survivor, I would personally say that no, I don't think it's either too killer-sided or Survivor-sided right now. I think it's a really healthy meta we're in right now, because now it's way easier for killers, especially M1 killers, to catch up to survivors and take them down in loops and get over and oppress more gens, I would say. Now that everything goes a lot faster and survivors have to think a lot about what their choices will be, what they will do throughout the game, how maybe cleansing a totem will affect the efficiency of getting the gens done in time, stuff like that. And I feel like since Dead by Daylight is a asymmetrical game, which basically means that there are two sides, as we know it's killers and survivors, and they both have different gameplay mechanics. So the game will never be 100% balanced because of the skill ceilings in this game. Again, there are survivors that are bad, there are survivors that are good, and the game will never be balanced enough to be fair to both sides of the skill spectrum. There could be perks added for M1 killers to make it way easier for them to engage in taking down survivors faster and making it a lot easier to oppress gens. But the problem would be that a lot of new players coming into Dead by Daylight and using those newer perks to help them out would make it a lot more unbalanced on the killer side, in contrast to the survivor side. Now, the whole spectrum here, it's really hard, but in this particular game I'm playing right now, as you can see on the screen, I am solo queuing by using sprint burst. I'm using off the record, I'm using adrenaline and kindred. I personally believe those are extremely good perks to go in for solo queue right now. Since off the record, of course, got changed, it got buffed, so it's basically a viable ayrun will with the endurance. Adrenaline is just a really nice perk to have at the end game, because you never know if you're gonna be healed up or not at the end of the game, or if you're in a chase, so it's always nice to have it. Now that it has been nerfed and it's way easier to find it, it's not too big of a problem to be in full health state at the end of the game. And I use sprint burst for more mobility around the map. I feel like now that tryhard got basically nerfed to the ground and it works in less situations, like tryharding for distance, so of course. And so I believe that 99ing the sprint burst and learning it to its fullest potential is a key factor for solo queue survivors and making it a lot easier for them to loop killers, get more distance. And I generally think that a lot of the survivors who are complaining just in general need to adapt to the new meta and understand how they are going to use all the new different perks that would basically be the solution for a more easier solo queue experience in Dead by Daylight. Because Decisive now got nerfed from like 5 seconds to 3 seconds, which is pretty insane, but I like the change because Decisive was always way too broken. In my opinion, it was always a get out of jail free card. That was the only way you could really defend yourself from the killer if you ever got downed. And now that tryhard literally only gives you like 0.5 seconds of endurance and you have to like time it really well, it will be way harder to use it, and I don't think it's more practical to use it in most situations compared to Sprint Burst. Now, the other perk I also are using much now as well is Off the Record, of course. Better version of Iron Will. Like, it basically gives you what Iron Will gave you at the best time you can have, which is basically when you're getting unhooked. And if you are like struggling and you like feel this build is way too just complicated, or in general it's just not working for you, I would suggest maybe switching out some perks, like maybe Adrenaline and Sprint Burst, and maybe go something like Unbreakable, try to blend in some Resilience for nice vaulting speed. You can also still use tryhard. I would not advise to use it. And I feel like one exhaustion perk that, because tryhard was the easiest exhaustion perk you could practically use. So now in a meta where a lot of people are running botany, which basically heals you up a lot faster, I would suggest maybe going something like Overcome. Now, it's a very situational perk because you don't know if you'll end up with a killer that will basically one-shot you, like a Billy, Bubba, Oni, or you will just not get nice enough distance with the perk because you generally are too scared to leave a loop or something. But I still feel like it has become more of a viable perk right now, especially in this endurance meta where basically you are enduranced up. It's easier for you to escape the killer and get yourself healed up with a med kit or by anyone else who has botany. So in particular, like talking about everything and going through like how a lot of these perks have changed, how Scourge, Hook, Pain, Resonance have changed up, not being as powerful as it was, Overcharge suddenly being a new thing in the meta, and overall, I just feel like the survivors now that are literally just killing themselves on Hook every single game because they don't want to adapt to the meta and they just want to manipulate all the stats so that behavior will basically revert them. I think it's a little bit stupid, and I think a lot of people should just try to get into the new meta. That's what I've been doing. I've always used Iron Will usually when I played. I have been using tryhard as well. I used to do it a lot in the early stages of when I started playing Survivor, and I started growing more into Sprint Burst, so it wasn't that hard of a transformation for me. But I would advise everyone that is struggling right now to switch up their build, try out Sprint Burst. I would not advise to just run tryhard every single game and hope for the best, because it has become way too situational in my opinion. Or in general, you could try something like Life, which is basically a more guaranteed way for you to get exhaustion if you're looping around a basic jungle gym or something like that. But yeah, I just wanted to share my thoughts on this, and I've seen a lot of people discuss this on Twitter. I've seen a lot of big content creators talk about it. So I thought I would just give my input on what I personally feel about how the game is balanced and how like the gameplay mechanics works now, how everything has basically just changed right now to a new meta. But I'm pretty stoked about it, and I'm looking forward to all the changes that behavior will make in the future. So that was all I was going to talk about. I hope you liked this fat looping skills of me looping this Wraith like it ain't nothing. And yeah, I'll probably see you guys later. So yeah, goodbye.